Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And today we're going to be taking on Inferno, one of the Schemer Beatdown Battle Catalyst. This is the next stage up in difficulty, apart from, EX2. The jump from EX2 to Inferno 1 is quite significant, considering that Clayman now has 28 million HP versus, 4 million or something in EX2, somewhere around there. But you do need to clear Inferno 1 if you are wanting to get the Union Bingo board fully completed, because it is a mission, unfortunately, right here. Clear Inferno 1. If you can't do that, you miss out on these spheres, and more importantly, you miss out on that 5-star ticket, which a lot of people are... That's the reason why people want to do this. Unfortunately, Inferno Beatdown Battle is not something that you can just do willy-nilly because of mainly the HP requirement and the things that Clayman is doing. He can be stunned, though, which means you can cheese the shit out of him once, once 7 turns is over. So, if that's what you want to do, then have at it. But he lowers your pierce rate and crit rate and Aegis rate. He has a butt ton of magic resistance. He nerfs oranges and blues now. EX2, you could use blue orbs still, not here. Increases his own magic damage, lowers your pierce power, crit damage, Aegis power, magic attack. 15 hit barrier, lowers your alt resistance, increases his own magic attack if he can yoink something off of you, like a status effect, and then he pretty much guarantees he's going to one-shot somebody. And then he has some Lord's Ambition, just because he's not enough of a dick already. So there are only a few teams that can come in and do this, and I'm going to feed off of some other people who have already uploaded Inferno videos, so credit out to them when their videos come up. But I can't be bothered to do all of these, because I have other things I want to do. So, let's get started. Alright, let's just rip the band-aid off. Naga, JP player, shout out to him for going through this pain and suffering. But this is actually him clearing Dire 2 with this team, and he's done it for all of these stages. So if it works for Dire 2, obviously it works for Inferno 1. But it is the Reckoning team with a little bit of stun involved. And Lumi. So we've got 3 fire characters here, which means that Lumi can convert blue orbs. We've got the Stunner, so that on turn 8 and beyond, you could just stun lock him. And then we've got Dino to keep us healed, to give us defense. This Dino is skill fused, and he's level 120. And then we've got Trya and Isis for the green orbs. But, I mean, I'm not going to make you watch all this. Credit to Naga for going through it. But he is able to kill on turn 23 or 24? Yeah, turn 23. So, I'm not going to do that. You're more than welcome to try. It requires the free-to-play carrion that you can get out of the shop. Obviously, it requires Dino, which I don't even have a 120 Dino, because I just don't use him. And Prosper Lumi. She's going to be pretty important to keep you alive for a couple different turns. But it is doable. So if this is something that you have to do to beat Inferno 1, then I'm going to link Naga's video down in the description. It is just the Stun Reckoning team, though. So, good luck. Alright, the first team is going to be the Schemer meta. I am recording this after the release of the new Schemer Lumi, so if you have Lumi, you can just simply replace Hinata for her. If not, things are going to be a bit rough. You kind of need the extra hits from Hinata or Lumi to really get the sword gimmick to kill. But we're running Raphael for the stacking ult and synergy power, plus the dark and space buff. We've brought Laplace, we've got Hinata for her multi-hit, and the physical buff if you really want to use it. Soka, obviously, and then we brought Visions of Coleus Blanc for the ult swap, the weakness strike, the synergy resistance down, because we are a synergy-focused team, so we can actually make use of that. So the team works, and the idea is that Blanc, even though she's ult swapping to blues, it really doesn't matter, because Soe's just going to convert it to green, and then we can send just the maximum amount of multi-hit follow-up green orbs. So turn 1, we are running the skill point trait on one character, or 2 characters actually, so we could get the 42 skill point start, which means we could use both the orb change and the Soka gimmick and buff at the same time. This gives us the maximum amount of turns that we can use to start getting the hit counter up. It's just that with this team, we are running multiple characters who are not schemer focused, so they do not get as many counts towards the hit counter, unlike Laplace and Soka. So that is just something to keep note of. If you have Lumi, then obviously you have a third character who can do it alongside the multi-hit, so that works very, very well. But for this team, like, the nuke is still fairly important. Like, you still want to take out a large chunk of his HP, because I don't think the sword gimmick by itself is able to kill him from, like, close to full. Unless you have Lumi and you're doing max power or something like that. But, you know, we've got a 15-hit barrier to get through. Thankfully, all the hits we're doing do count towards that, so even though we're not hitting Clayman directly, we are still getting all the multi-hits and all the follow-ups against him and all that. And that's exactly what you're going to need. So here we have an ult for Soka. Not great, but this is why we brought Blanc. So we just bring her in for Raphael after we use another stack of his ult and synergy power. Both of those are going to work very, very well for us, because we don't have someone giving normal ult damage. We just have EX ult damage from Soe. So let's bring... it doesn't really matter. Either one of them can work. They both have turn 2 protection gauge, both Hinata and Blanc. But we'll use Hinata's multi-hit again. Gonna get pretty expensive. And then the ult swap. And then we'll reapply the green buff. That way it's active for all 5 turns of this fight. And I don't have to use it because we have an excess of points right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Another full hand. And that's why we brought an ult swapping character. It doesn't matter what color it's going to. As long as you bring one, it could just give you more green orbs. And we now have the EX ult for Soka. So you could either use some of the buffs now and send Soka away, or you could leave her up front to try and increase her attack even more, therefore giving the sword gimmick more damage, more attack stat to pull from, so it does more damage. But that's entirely up to you. We are going to swap her away, though, so we can get that out of here. We'll use the multi-hit, we'll bring Raphael in. We have enough points to use the dark buff, and well, dark/space buff. So we will use that and apply it to the back line, which is where Soka is. And then we're not going to get the multi-hit, but we will get the follow-up orbs here at least. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Cool. Sorry. What was I talking about? We are getting the multi-hits, we're not getting the follow-up orbs. My bad. Switched it around. But we did break the barrier first before hitting them with Laplace's ult. And it's now turn 5, so we're pretty much all ready to go. So let's go ahead and bring Soka in. We don't have that many points. We're not capped out, and we're certainly not at like 180 or something. But we do have enough to do what I want to do, which is the physical buff with Hinata, and then the synergy power with Soka. And you could argue that using Blanc's buff would have been better than Hinata, but, you know, you can do what you want. So Hinata's ult does 290k, peanuts. Blanc, worse. 16 million with Soka is very, very good. That's a lot of his health bar right there. We had the physical buff, the synergy buff, the space buff, a couple stacks from Raphael, the stacking attack, and then the swords come in and finish him up. So there is the schemer meta taking down Inferno 1 without actually having like all the schemer characters. But it does require you to have the multi-hit Hinata. So that's very, very important. Alright, next up is everyone's most favoritist team in the world, Divine General, with a very necessary substitution. Because we cannot use Pierce in this fight, because Pierce power is nerfed and our Pierce rate is nerfed, there's no real point in bringing the masked hero. We have to bring Visions of Coleus Violet, because Clayman does have that pretty hefty magic attack nerf, and this team is magic focused. We need Violet's 100% buff to negate that, so we can actually do normal damage. Because how the calculations work, math is hard, but Clayman puts that nerf on you pretty instantly, and it's coming off of the top. So if you start at 0% magic attack, and you try and enhance that with all the buffs that we're getting off the Divine General team, then, 100% to 0 is still 0, right? So we have to be able to negate that magic nerf, and let me find the run. Okay, it was just the next one. But anyways, we have to bring Violet. If you don't bring Violet and you try and bring a different character, which I did, I tried to bring Warrior's Mind Blanc, you do like 5 million damage on the nuke with both my Blanc, Divine General Blanc, and Raphael, and that's just not enough. He has 28 million HP. So you have to bring Violet. It's not negotiable. There's no one else who has such a high magic attack buff that can offset that. She's necessary. So if you're going to run this team, you are going to need this. You're maybe Divine General Blanc, maybe not super necessary. You could replace her, but you're definitely going to need Raphael because you need those stacks. You need the stacks of attack or ult damage and synergy power. That's not negotiable. Gazel, he's a necessary thing. Diablo is pretty necessary. So this team is pretty much locked into what it is. And breaking the barrier is quite annoying, which means that you're going to nuke on turn 9 instead of turn 8. Which, oh well. As long as you can survive, that's the thing. Is that maybe if you're trying this team and you're dying too quickly, you might have to put a heal charm on instead of the protection gauge on greens that I'm running. But yeah, you need all these units to get the job done. You can't just get by with just Elmesia, Diablo, and Gazel. You're going to need all the pieces of this puzzle. So it is the Divine General team, and it is just using a bunch of skills and green orbs over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, which can be quite rough. But at least green orbs are not nerfed here. That's a positive thing. So excuse me while I skip ahead 5 turns of pressing the same buttons over again. Yeah, let's go to turn 7. There we go. So Gazel, he's pretty low, right? I'm kind of nervous of having him up front right now. I just have to pray that he does not die here, because we still have to break the barrier. We still have 9 hits to go, and we only send 6 a turn. So this is why we have to nuke on turn 9. So we are just continuing to buff, we are continuing to stack, and it's the same shit all over again every single time. So alt swap, orb change, stack with Raphael. We'll take Gazel out of here. We have an ult for both of them, it doesn't really matter. The weakness strike actually does matter, because it'll help, but what do we want to do? We do want to use the green buff, obviously. So we're actually going to take Gazel out and just send this and not do anything. And we're just going to take out as much of the barrier as possible. But we didn't send 6 orbs. So we actually have another hit of the barrier. But the counterattack comes in clutch. Thank you. So we still have to send 3 orbs. So we have to make sure that we can send 3 orbs first off. So there's the magic buff, the most integral part of this entire thing. If you do not use that magic buff, you do not kill. Straight up. So we've used it. Let's use the orb change, because, hey, it'll give us a full hand, and then we can bring Diablo in, and then we can buff and buff and buff, and then, if we can reset with Elmesia, use the green buff, use a couple more stacks of Raphael, however many points we have, boom, boom, and they're all going to be fairly necessary. So 2, and 3, and 4. 4 extra stacks after that, which is pretty hefty. And now we'll go ahead and nuke. We'll send Diablo first because it'll help our weakness strike. We have 300% ult damage, which means we also have 300% synergy power. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Diablo ult will come in. He does 573k, but he's a support ult. He's not meant to do a huge butt ton of damage. And then Blanc comes in, and she does 53 million. Which Raphael would have done about that same amount of damage, because he has the same amount of buffs, essentially, minus the dupe investment. So maybe he would have done like 40-something, but still, Claim only has 24 million HP. So Divine General can get it done, but you need that Violet. Otherwise, you are doing, instead of doing 54 million, you're doing about 5 or 6, maybe. It's pretty awful. Alright, the final team that I have for you that I've recorded is going to be a very wonky rainbow orb focused Primal Demon team. Because Protector Violet is giving Primal Demons extra damage against wind enemies, so we're going to bring Blanc, Warrior's Mind 2.0 Blanc and Violet, to give us the rainbow orbs and that nuking power. And then we brought Raphael and Diablo for their big time buffs. We brought Hinata for her physical buff and the multi-hit, which will be active with the rainbow orbs. And then Violet has the rainbows and the control stacks, and then Blanc is obviously our nuking character. So this requires a lot of premium characters, but a fairly old protector. So maybe you have this, maybe you don't, I don't really know. But we're not doing any fancy, like, 36 or 42 skill points on turn 1. Well, all we're going to do is we're going to use 3 skills. We're going to use the 0-cost green buff and the first stack of Raphael, and then because we have the points for it, we're going to do it again. And so we've used 2 stacks of Raphael now. We'll bring Blanc in, we'll bring Violet in, and we have 3 Primal Demons on the team, which means that we can get a full hand of rainbows, which is very, very good for what we're wanting to do here. So just send the 4 greens. You're ideally looking for 3 orbs of Blanc to get the EX ult. So orange buff, rainbow, convert. We didn't need to swap Diablo in because Raphael didn't have any orbs to begin with, so it doesn't really matter all that much. We can use another stack of Raphael though, so that's now 3 stacks. And then we can bring Diablo or Hinata in. And then we can use the multi-hit, and we can break the barrier now. And then we'll bring Diablo in, sorry. And then we'll use the stack with Violet. So all 3 of our Primal Demon characters can get that attack buff. And then we'll send this, and that will get us the EX ult for Blanc, which is great, and an EX ult for Violet, which isn't damage, but it's damage support because of the weakness strike stacks that we're going to give to Blanc. And then Blanc, we can just store some buffs now. Since we are a stacking protector, it does raise our skill cap, which means that we have more points to use every single turn. And now we have to just kind of wait a little bit for the next barrier to be active, because we don't have enough points to nuke quite yet. We're not quite ready. But by the time we are, there's going to be another barrier. So we can't use the rainbows now. We have to be strategic about the rainbows and the multi-hit skill. So we have enough points. We'll use the Dark and Space buff. We use the synergy buff. No, actually, we didn't need that yet. But we use the... What's it called? What did we use here? we use the Dark and Space buff, first and foremost. Do the ult. That's the weakness strike for Blanc. That's great. Alright, cool. And then here, we've got a whole bunch of orbs, and we've got the barrier now. So here is where we would need to bring in Diablo for Raphael. Get that full hand, convert it into rainbows, and then use the multi-hit. Need to make sure you have enough of those points. The orange buff from Blanc is gone now, we haven't used that, so we're going to use the green buff from Diablo to give these oranges some extra oomph, which is going to give us 300 skill points, a double stack of Violet, and that will be enough to use all of the primary damage buffs we want, and then we'll nuke on turn 5 while the barrier is still down, and before Clayman can do too much damage to us. So we will use the synergy buff now. We'll put the control stacks on to enhance the debuff. And then we can take Diablo out of here. And then we could use the Blanc buff and the physical buff, I believe. So, boom, boom. So, extra 20 skill points plus the dark and damage buff. And then we'll use the physical attack right here. 2 stacks of Violet, and then we will nuke with both Violet and Blanc. The Diablo, he wouldn't do much damage because he's a magic character, and he's got that huge nerf on, so he's not really important. But we'll send this. Violet does 687, but gives us more weakness strike, which is perfect. And then Blanc herself does 34 million damage, which is more than plenty to get Clayman down. So there is a makeshift Primal Demon burst-ish 5-turn burst team using a stacking protector and rainbow orbs. So that works very well. And, you know, you do need Raphael, you do need Diablo. Hinata you kind of need for the multi-hit. You can replace Hinata with the new Lumi if you have her, because you get the multi-hit and you would get the physical buff, and you get the synergy resistance down. So she would just be a huge replacement. But maybe you don't have her. But this team definitely obviously works. And then the actual final team, that not me, but this is now GooXic, who has recorded 3 teams, 2 of which I ripped from him. So again, shout out to GooXic, because I took his Primal Demon Warrior's Mind and his Divine General team, which is how I found out that you need to have that magic buff with Violet. So he actually did most of the work for me. I'm just I'm just talking over his stuff, but I did my own runs. But I'm not going to do my own run for the Frieren team. But Himmel, Fern, Frieren, the OG Space Masked Hero, the new Aegis Velzard, and then Blanc. We are using Aegis because with the Magic State active, Frieren will eliminate all of those debuffs and nerfs that Clayman puts on us, so we can freely use crit, we could freely use the Aegis effect. So that's what he's doing here, but I'll let his video speak for itself. So shout out to GooXic for providing me 2 teams and having a 3rd team that he's done that I didn't record, but I'll have the link to his video down in the description as well. So technically there is 5 teams that can clear Inferno 1 or higher, depending, for Inferno 1 beatdown battle. But so hopefully, if these videos, either one of them, helped you out, please let me know in the comments. If you found any other team that can get the job done, also let me know in the comments. But that's it for me. Take it easy. Again, shout out to GooXic and Naga for their videos, and I will see you all later.